Hello, and welcome to episode 23 of The Best Games Period. I'm your host, Jack Gardner. With us, as always, are the trusty Daniel Jones and Jeremy Brown. And this week we are talking about Team Fortress 2 with the one and only Jack Packard. And Jack, it's very rare that I meet another Jack, so I'm happy, now we're at least even with the non-Jacks on this podcast.
You know what they say, two Jacks in the hand is worth one in the bush. That's an old saying.
Right, and we don't talk about the Jack that's in the bush. He's weird, and we don't want anything to do with him.
You really don't meet many Jacks, though, Jack?
No, I meet Jacksons. I meet Johns that call themselves Jack. I meet a lot of old people that think I'm named John.
Yeah, what's the deal with people named John that call themselves Jack? There's one that works at my bank. I don't understand that.
Really?
I think there was a Kennedy that did that, too.
Yeah.
Blame the Catholics.
I think you're right.
The Catholics really liked their biblical names, but then, you can only have so many Johns and so many Peters.
So they went with Jack?
So Jack became a nickname for John, so you could still technically be named after a biblical character, but have a different name.
Huh.
I still blame the Kennedys.
I mean, they perpetuated it, clearly.
Absolutely.
I'm pretty sure they're Catholic.
Yeah, they're Catholic.
Yeah. But we're not here to talk about Catholic names and Johns and Jacks or that weird guy in the bush behind my house. We're here to talk about Team Fortress 2. But before we do that, we are going to be talking a little bit about our guest. Who is Jack Packard? Who is this enigma?
Sure. Most people know me as that bald man who is on Red Letter Media's Best of the Worst and previously recorded. So I'm just a guy who produces videos and spends his time watching terrible movies and playing video games with my friends.
Not too shabby, really.
It's quite a life.
That beautiful bald man. Don't undersell yourself.
And you did some work on Funny or Die, too. I remember watching those Toss Me a Beer, Hand Me a Beer.
The Hey, Pass Me a Beer videos, the high five montages. I used to work for funnyordie.com, actually as a video producer, and I used to be a video screener for funnyordie.com. And so it was my job to watch every video uploaded to Funny or Die every single day, back when they were having user-submitted uploads.
How did you do that? How did you even have anywhere near enough time to do that?
It was a horrible existence.
I was going to say, that must have been terrible.
You'd watch 200 videos a day.
Oh, wow.
And it was soul-sucking. But it was fun because we found actually, in the early days of Funny or Die, I got involved with Funny or Die very early on, and we found some really great talent in those early days just from watching people's videos.
At first you made it sound like you were strapped in a dark room somewhere with your eyeballs taped open or something and just forced to watch these videos. Now that actually sounds kind of neat.
It was worse than strapped in a room. I was in Wisconsin. I was one of the few people outside of Los Angeles who worked with Funny or Die. And so that was just the job they gave me so I could hang around.
Well, if you're still looking for comedic talent, my hand's being raised. So.
Yeah.
How did you get involved with Funny or Die from Wisconsin? That seems like a big spatial difference.
It is. My cousin, Jake Szymanski, who still makes videos for Funny or Dies and has a feature release coming out soon. Zach and Dave Need Wedding Dates. Went out there, got a film degree, and we always made comedy stuff and videos together. And he went out there and he came back to Wisconsin actually to make a serious dramatic film.
Okay.
And he wanted me to help him produce his serious dramatic film. And we tried our damnedest and failed horribly.
Oh, no.
A serious dramatic film. And on the last day of shooting, all the actors were still hanging around. And we just started joking and made a dumb video called Friday Night Nights. It was a play on the popular show Friday Night Lights.
Yeah.
A very clever title, I know.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
We uploaded it to Funny or Die on the day that Funny or Die launched, and the servers crashed. Just as our video was on the front page of Funny or Die.
So you broke Funny or Die.
I mean, it was all 100% us. We broke it.
Yeah.
It had nothing to do with Will Ferrell or Adam McKay or Chris Henchy or any of the people who started it. It was us.
Not. Yeah.
And then they saw the stuff we made, and they called Jake, who was living in LA, and they said, "Hey, we need people to work for us." And that's how it started. Jake started working for them. He brought me in, and we just kept making really dumb videos.
That's actually really pretty awesome.
It was great. A little bit of right place, right time, and it was just the stuff we were doing anyway. We kept making funny videos, and eventually one of them stuck.
Yeah. So have you always been kind of into video games, or is that something that's kind of new? We have kind of a variety of perspectives here. Daniel used to run a video game website, and Jeremy didn't grow up with video games. He grew up with them a little bit and then fell off for a long time and only got back into them in like the last 10 years or so.
Okay.
And I work in the industry, so what about you? Where are you coming from?
I mean, I've always been playing games. I've always strictly been a console gamer. Up until the past, I'd say 6 years, I've been a strict, hardcore console gamer. Only because where I grew up, we didn't have computers. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have... I grew up on a farm, and we did not have access to modern technology. But we had a Nintendo.
Yep.
A fellow farmhand named Jack. It's great.
I did not have internet that was capable of doing anything remotely gaming related until probably around when TF2 launched, actually. Oh. So I understand what it's like to be mostly on consoles.
No, and to segue, if I could, into the topic at hand, or a hint at the topic at hand, it was actually Team Fortress 2 that got me into PC gaming.
Really?
Which obviously is the greatest thing ever. Because I started playing Team Fortress 2 on the Xbox 360. Okay. And absolutely fell in love with it. And I started reading up and just gathering all the information I could on Team Fortress 2. And all of a sudden I hear about these new maps that were available and new weapons that you could get and just new ways to play that weren't available on the Xbox 360.
Right. And
it wrecked me. Because just on the Xbox 360, I had probably 200 hours into it. Oh my
goodness, yeah. Well, and they were going to release those updates on 360, but as like a giant bundle for like $15, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Absolutely, and I happily would have paid, but Valve didn't want to make it a paid update.
Right.
Which was great for their morals, but for me, I couldn't play it.
Yeah.
And I've always had a Mac. I've never had a Windows computer. And so Team Fortress 2 just wasn't available on Mac.
Yeah.
And the day it was, I switched to a PC gamer.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
That released on Mac like in 2010?
Yeah, in 2009, 2010.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it was 2010, and Linux in 2013.
I started playing it in 2008 on the Xbox 360, and as soon as it came available on Mac in 2010, was a hardcore PC gamer from that day forward.
Is it still something you play daily? Is it still, or what are you playing now?
Actually, I have not played Team Fortress 2 in quite a long time for several reasons. Recently, I've been playing a lot of Dark Souls 3.
Yep.
Yeah.
Salt and Sanctuary.
Yeah.
You just opened a whole can of discussion.
Ooh, yeah. Dig me some Salt and Sanctuary. And for the next episode, we're doing Quantum Break.
Okay.
So I've been playing some Quantum Break.
How is that? How are you liking that?
Not great.
It's no Dark Souls.
I just got to the point. Quantum Break has taken a grand leap in cutscenes, where the actual cutscenes are television shows.
Really?
All of a sudden, I reached a point in the game where it just told me to put the controller down, and I watched about a 20-minute television show with live actors.
Was there actually a message that told you to put the controller down?
Well, I just assumed after a couple minutes.
It's like 6 different episodes of 20 minutes each, isn't it? Something like that?
I just got to the first one, and I didn't know what this game was, and so I was shocked.
I've been purposely not reading anything about it, because I just kind of want to play it and figure it out on my own. Mm-hmm. But that sounds weird, and I'm not sure how I feel about it, just from what you've said.
It's a really strange step. Like, you can't even call it a step backwards. It's like a step diagonally. Like, the rest of the game is a fairly generic third-person shooter. You get some neat time manipulation powers, and you get to use them approximately twice. And the rest is walking cutscenes and then live action cutscenes. I'm only like 5 to 6 hours in, but that's my entire experience so far.
Huh.
Pretty long ways in.
I would think, but
yeah,
we'll see.
Sounds kind of like The Order, 1886.
I'm getting a lot of that vibe.
Okay.
Unfortunately, and you know, coming off of Dark Souls 3 and Salt and Sanctuary, which is all hardcore gameplay. I'm sweating here playing Quantum Break.
Yeah, Jack, Riverboat Jack.
Yeah.
You need to play Salt and Sanctuary. You haven't played that yet, and you really should.
I will. I've just been trying to focus on finishing other things that I have on my plate.
I mean, you are playing Hyper Light Drifter and Dark Souls 3 at the same time.
Well, I finished Hyper Light Drifter. That game was great. Highly recommend that one. Mm. How far are you in Dark Souls 3, Jack?
I think I'm about 16 hours, and I'm also not terribly into it.
Yeah, I'm really interested in this because I'm kind of in the same boat. Why aren't you into it?
Well, like, how are you guys on the Souls series? Are you guys big Soulsers?
I appreciate what they do, and I like parts of them. Mm-hmm. There are other... For example, I just got to a part in Dark Souls 3 that just made me so mad with the level of BS that they throw at you that I was just like, I have to be done with this for a while. And I'm not someone who loses my cool very easily. But this game, it makes me so mad, and I sit back and I think to myself, why it's a game, I should be having fun, but it's not necessarily fun for me all the time.
Sure. What about Jeremy and Daniel? Are you guys Soulsers?
I love Dark Souls 1 a lot. Dark Souls 2 enjoyed. I like Bloodborne. And Demon Souls I appreciated. And so far Dark Souls 3 I think is pretty cool.
Really, we played about the first hour and a half maybe today.
Yeah.
We beat the tutorial boss.
It's beautiful.
Actually, you know what? We're underselling it. I beat the tutorial boss.
I had to tell him how to use a fireball.
Basically single-handedly. Without getting touched. I don't know that he landed a hit on me.
Did you just run around throwing fire at it?
He landed a hit on you.
Did he?
A few. You had to use like 2 Estus flasks.
No, I ended with 2 Estus flasks. Anyway.
Whatever.
Then we had to go grocery shopping.
That story went places.
Much more difficult than Dark Souls.
That's a beautiful metaphor for modern day gamers. I was at this really hard boss, but then I had to go grocery shopping.
It was difficult too. Two grown men going grocery shopping based on a list that a very well organized woman put together for them. And we were looking at it like, wait, what does this mean? What is this? What kind of cheese is that? Oh, man.
We have coupons and everything. Only buy this if you spend this much money because it's on sale.
That actually sounds a lot like the first experience I had trying to figure out the first Dark Souls game.
Yeah.
There's a lot of special lore. Like, I've never played much of the earlier Souls games, but I loved Bloodborne.
Yeah.
Bloodborne was a revelation as far as From Software is concerned. And so coming from that, you know, the Dark Souls series has a bigger emphasis on shielding and not such a bigger emphasis on parrying, where in Bloodborne, you know, you have your gun and parrying your enemies is this huge advantage. But also just the world of Bloodborne seems a lot more cohesive.
Yeah.
And this is just personally, I love horror movies and I love gore And so in Bloodborne, that's where you start, and that's where it stays until it gets Lovecraftian.
Yeah.
And so it goes from horror to Lovecraft, and that's a beautiful transition to me. And so I'm just not feeling the world of Dark Souls.
Yeah.
At least not with 3.
Maybe not with 3. It's like it's a lot of castles and wizards.
Yeah.
And I'm just not there.
I know what you mean. I think there's something about the way the game is designed that feels tired to me.
Yeah,
Like,
tired.
Does that come through? Yeah, okay. And I've read interviews with the game designer, Miyazaki, and he's said a few times that he's ready to be done and to move on from this series that was only ever intended to be one game.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he came back to do this one, and it's a respectable Souls game. It's solid. It's, in terms of probably production quality, it's probably the highest one so far.
No, it looks beautiful, and the gameplay is spot on.
Yeah.
All of the combat is very fun. It's just there's nothing compelling about it.
Right. Like, Bloodborne felt like a huge step forward from Software in general. And I feel like Dark Souls 3 is just kind of going back to what they've done before and just doing that pretty well.
Like a polished version of what they've done before, sure.
Right. But it's not as exciting as it was before, and it's not as adventurous as it was before. Like, in the first Dark Souls game, they just put you down on the mountaintop and give you a bunch of routes and don't tell you where to go, and you figure that out for yourself. And I like that kind of adventurous element to it.
I think that's a really good adjective to use. Like, in Dark Souls 3, it never feels like you're exploring.
Right.
Even though you have these very open maps, you can always tell exactly where you need to go.
Yeah.
And I know the biggest problem I had when playing it, and we came across this a couple times. Me and Rich, for previously recorded, do live streams. We came across this a couple times where I needed a bonfire. I was really low on Estus flasks, and I was feeling fatigued, and I just said, oh man, I really hope there's a bonfire nearby, and just at that exact moment, there was a bonfire. And that's not what a From Software game should be. There should be a bonfire at least 3 enemies away from there.
Yeah.
You need to work for those save spots.
And then there are some that are just placed at places that make me scratch my head and wonder why. Mm-hmm. For example, last night I beat a boss, and when you beat a boss, usually a bonfire appears. So there's one right there. And then I literally walked around a corner, and there was another bonfire. It was like 5 seconds away, and I was just like, why? Why is this here?
Bloodborne had a couple of those too, though. You kill the Shadow of Yharnam, and you walk down a path. You kill one alien, and then you have another lamp. So, I mean, like, I don't know. It seems similar. I haven't gotten far enough into Dark Souls 3 to really
I always love
judge
when people talk about these games, because people who have had no experience with Bloodborne or Dark Souls are just going to be listening to this thinking to themselves, you kill an alien after you kill a shadow? What is this?
You kill a zombie, a shadow, and then an alien, and then a Cthulhu.
And then you go grocery shopping.
It's all true.
You
though.
go grocery shopping, and then you kill Cronenberg's The Fly like 7 times. But after that, there's a giant light spider that you really need to worry about.
Oh man, that spider.
I was trying to co-op with one of my friends the other day, and because the game doesn't really tell you what any of these monsters are called, you have to try and explain to each other what you're fighting or like what to look out for. It's like, oh, you have to look out for these creepy slug baby monsters. Or, oh, look out for that cage full of legs. Like,
I did love the cage full of legs in Dark Souls 3. That was even though, you know, like it was a beautiful monster design.
Yeah.
The only problem is, as soon as you walk into that room and see a cage full of legs, you immediately know that one of them is going to fall down. But you have to respect them for that kind of monster design.
Oh, yeah. I will not respect them, though, for how many mimics, the metric crap ton of mimics they put in Dark Souls 3.
Yeah, it seems like there's way too many.
I just want to give a middle finger to the game designer every time I run across a chest, because I usually have a thought in my head, oh, they wouldn't put 2 mimics in the same room. They wouldn't put 3 mimics in a row. Like, the last 3 chests I've run into have been mimics. They wouldn't put a 4th one.
Of course they would.
And then, of course it's a mimic. Of course it is.
That's great.
Jack Packard, I have to ask, just because I've been obsessed with it, and just until I bought Dark Souls 3 today, I was still playing New Game Plus on Salt and Sanctuary. So what are your thoughts on that game? You seem to like it.
I do seem to. I have a love-hate relationship with Salt and Sanctuary. Salt and Sanctuary is Super Metroid meets Bloodborne. Or Dark Souls, more accurately Dark Souls. You get a gun, but the gun is kind of useless. So it's Super Metroid meets Dark Souls. So it's a 2D side-scrolling Dark Souls, and it's beautiful. The gameplay is perfectly challenging. It's all the things you love about Dark Souls and all the things you love about Super Metroid. But that also makes me kind of hate it. Because there's nothing unique about the game except for the mashing of these 2 ideas. And I mean, even the art style is either Dark Souls or terrible.
Yeah.
Your main character in Salt and Sanctuary is the ugliest art design I've ever seen, and I hate looking at him. What is it?
It's like preschool art.
Exactly. It was placeholder art because I'm sure what they tried to do was pitch this to From Software as an official Dark Souls side-scroller, and From Software passed, and so then they just released it with the temp art.
Oh, interesting. Interesting theory.
Especially the character art. The main character art is pretty terrible.
And even, I mean, some of the areas and bosses and enemies are just ripped completely from Dark Souls games.
Absolutely.
Which is disappointing. But boy, do I love it still.
This is my entire conflict with the game, which is it's an incredible ripoff of 2 amazing ideas, and it meshes them together really well. So should you be happy that we get the mesh, or upset that it's 2 incredible ripoffs?
I mean,
I think it was cheap enough that I don't care.
Jeremy is correct. It's cheap enough where if you own a PS4, you should get Salt and Sanctuary. It's a beautiful game.
Yeah.
I don't have anything against someone who's able to combine 2 pre-existing things very well, especially if no one else. I mean, Dark Souls has been out for a while. Super Metroid has been out for a very long while. So, I mean, at a certain point, it's just kind of like, hey, no one's done it yet. It's kind of fair game, right?
If only the main character had some sort of personality, then maybe it could be excusable. But I mean, everything about the game. You know, you have to collect salt from the enemies that you kill, and if you die, you have to go retrieve your salt, not your souls. No, but
it's a straight up ripoff. Anybody that says otherwise is delusional.
It's the terrible ripoff, but it's incredibly fun, and it's a wonderful, wonderful game.
But you also hate it.
But I also hate it because it's a terrible
and Sanctuary, love and hate.
Love and hate, absolutely. Mostly love. Everyone should get it because it's exactly the horror that you think it is. Super Metroid. Yeah. And like it even has those Super Metroid things where you get power-ups but then have to go back to earlier levels to use your power-ups to get to other levels, where there are no original ideas in this game besides taking 2 popular things and smashing them together.
Yeah.
Yeah, besides making the Souls formula in 2D, which they're only original on that because they beat out many other games that are coming in the next year or 2.
and when those games have a superior art style or a slightly different story, they're going to get it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
No, Salt and Sanctuary is fantastic, and I hate that it's fantastic. I guess maybe that's it.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
That's fair.
I'm sure it's the kind of thing where they maybe they made just like a really savvy business move, and they saw that all these games were going to be coming down the pipeline, and so instead of hashing out their art design and their story, they just rushed it through those phases. I mean, maybe that's just a cunning business strat.
The savvy business move would have been to not release it 3 weeks before Dark Souls 3, but yeah.
Well, they had to get it out before Dark Souls 3, otherwise no one's going to buy it.
Yeah, it was better before than after.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely better before, yeah.
Because then everyone who talks about Salt and Sanctuary will hashtag Dark Souls, and it'll get in the search results, and it'll trend along with Dark Souls.
Yeah.
And Slashy Souls. Did you guys play Slashy Souls?
See, I told you about Slashy Souls. Jack didn't even know about Slashy
I thought he was making it up, because that name sounds very fake to me.
It's horrible. It's the GameStop Endless Runner Dark Souls game. And it's terrible. It's a terrible, even by Endless Runner standards. It's a mobile game called Slashy Souls that is an endless runner that takes place in the Dark Souls universe, and it's terrible.
That's a shame.
It is, but it's free, so you can pick it up and go ha ha ha, and then delete it from your phone forever.
Well, I mean, how many endless runners are genuinely great?
Right, exactly.
Sorry if I offended people who really love endless runners.
You just offended a whole community.
Forrest Gump was pretty great.
Wait, we need a rim shot.
Yeah, Jack. Let's do that.
Let's do it.
I feel like we've turned this into a Dark Souls episode.
Right.
And I still have a couple more questions for Jack Packard.
Oh, go for it.
Before we get into Team Fortress 2. So, I've watched a few episodes previously recorded, and I'm curious how you and Rich partnered up, and what are some of your favorite episodes, and how do you choose which games to discuss?
Sure, all fine questions. I've been making videos for a long time with Funny or Die and just for fun and here and there. And in Milwaukee happened to be these other guys who were making internet videos. They were Jay and Mike from Red Letter Media. And most people will know them for the Plinkett reviews. Plinkett does, very long form movie reviews as an insane character. And they were, internet celebrities, but we just happened to know each other because we both made internet videos, and so we started working on each other's projects because it's always nice to have people to help you out with your projects. And Rich Evans is a friend of Mike's from Red Letter Media, and we just got to talking, and as it turns out, we were both video gamers, and what would usually happen is whenever we'd all get together to shoot a video, at some point Rich and I would leave everyone else and talk about video games and, what are you playing, and da-da-da. And we just decided, as any workaholic knows, you need to find a way to turn your passions into work to feed your workaholism.
That is very true.
So we decided to turn our hobby of playing video games endlessly into a business opportunity, and now we have previously recorded.
Yeah, and it's chugging along pretty well.
We kind of do our own thing, it's we've as far as like what game we choose to play, it's all just whatever the fuck we feel about whatever the fuck we feel, and I hope I can cuss because I just cussed. I'm really sorry if this
fuck no you can't.
You're gosh darn right you can if you want.
Dang it.
Our podcast is marked explicit, so
great.
Yeah, you're good.
So, like, Rich and I really try to keep it fresh for us because we want to stay excited about video games. And so for a while we were doing a string of AAA titles. And what happened was we would do the episode and people in the comment section would hate us. And they would hate us for exact opposite reasons. But the videos did well, and we were really happy with that. And so then we decided to do a string of indie games just to keep us happy with it. But then everyone complained that we only play indie games and we only like indie games. So then we did some more AAA titles, and people complained some more. And so then we did some more indie games, and everybody hates everything all the time.
Yeah. I was going to ask you, how do you deal with that negativity in your life? Because I know I work on the internet. I make videos and this podcast and write a lot of things, and so I'm pretty in tune with how people react to things online. How do you deal with all that negativity in your life?
The toughest part is I also moderate the comments, and so I set the filters, and I have to read all of the filtered comments, and some of them are pretty awful. But the wonderful thing is we get that moderation. We get some sort of control.
Yeah.
And obviously, someone is there is someone when I post a new previously recorded, within 1 minute of it going live, there is a downvote. and there is someone posting a negative comment before they had time to watch the episode. And so
that's kind of not how you made it. Well, to a degree, right?
It brings me a little bit of joy that someone is subscribed to us just to hate us, and that
that's so much work. So much work to put in to hate somebody.
The opposite of love is not hate; it's indifference, right?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure this woman married me once just because she hated me.
And she just wanted to poke at you for the rest of your life?
Yeah, she just wanted to torment me as long as possible.
Well, that as long as you get that passion, I think that's beautiful.
Exactly. No hate coming from my end.
Right. Well, and there have been some positive comments that come out of the hate, and we do try to listen to constructive criticism. Unfortunately, a lot of the criticism is just about our opinions. And apparently, our opinions are very wrong about everything all the time.
Oh, yeah.
So
always. Well, it's weird because I don't think people know how opinions work anymore on the internet. It's very strange to me, and I'm hoping it's just kind of like a transitionary period where people are still figuring out the internet. I don't know, but.
Well, the biggest complaint we get is people accusing us of being experts, and they say, how dare you review a game? You're just some schmuck. And of course, our answer is yes, we are just schmucks, and we're just telling you our opinions. It's not our job to tell you your opinion on a game.
That's actually a schmuck for listening to it if you just think we're schmucks. Don't watch.
That's all we're trying to have a conversation about video games. If you enjoy it, great. If you don't, that's fine too.
Well, and that's all criticism is at the end of the day, is just having, maybe it's an informed opinion, but it's still an opinion on something, and opening up that discussion.
Of course it is.
There should be a flow chart or Venn diagram that's mandatory to learn in pre-K.
Or every time you log in, you have to verify this is an opinion. This is what an opinion is.
We should start a Dare type program, but for internet trolls.
No, it's great. It brings out. I'm just happy that people watch and people notice. That's. No matter how many negative comments we get, they're still watching for some reason. Once people stop watching, then I'll really take notice. But
right,
yeah.
Well, I mean, we put ourselves out there every week with our opinions on games because we judge specifically whether or not a game is one of the best games. Period, and a lot of times people probably disagree with us. But, until we get a larger audience anyway, we don't really have to worry about that quite yet.
Yeah.
We'll get a big audience, and 5 years from now, somebody will
listen to these episodes and be like, what? You said what about Singularity?
What's that? Daniel Jones is completely wrong about Metal Gear Solid 4 and it's really a great game? I better send him hate mail.
In episode 3, you said this one thing. In episode 396, you said something slightly opposite. You son of a bitch.
That's the worst part is when people say for me, as an example, I really enjoyed the game Firewatch.
Yeah.
Oh, I was going to bring that up. That was actually the first video I watched.
Oh, great. And I thought it was a really nice story. It was a great length, and I really just enjoyed exploring these woods, as a character. And I thought it was a really nice character piece and a really nice story. But I did not like Stardew Valley.
Oh, you're in trouble.
I bet you made a lot of friends with that game.
But so, people say, how can you not like Stardew Valley when you did like Firewatch? And, maybe people don't understand that they are two very different games. Everyone brings in their own experience when they're talking about any sort of escapism. And for me, Firewatch was great. It was 5 hours. It was a nice story. It was good gameplay, and that's it. Boom. And Stardew Valley was farming, was chores, and I wasn't necessarily into it.
I watched that episode, and you bring up the point that I thought was very valid, that you grew up on a farm. So farming things, and that's not escapism for you. And whereas being what does the guy do in Firewatch? He's a forest ranger, right?
He's a forest ranger.
Yeah. He's a forest ranger.
Fire watcher.
He's a lookout.
He's a lookout.
Yeah.
He's a fire watcher. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, not many people have that job, so maybe it's a completely different experience.
I want that job.
The art style in Firewatch, where it's just like, it's the woods, but it's a stylized woods, and so you're walking around in this atmosphere that's completely foreign to you, and just walking around and looking around was enough of a world for me.
Yeah, I thought it had great exploration. I spent way more than 5 hours in it, personally.
Right? Well, it was just fun walking around.
Yeah, there are some games that can get away with that, and that's entirely up to whoever's playing it, whether or not they do get away with it.
But one is a story-focused, first-person exploration game, and the other is a retro art-style, pixel graphic farming simulator, and you have to feel the exact same about both of them.
Well, Jack, I don't know
Or
if you know
else.
this, but having opinions on video games is a science, and it's objective, so... the numbers just aren't adding up.
You're right. I'm an incredible fraud.
Well, I'm glad we were able to expose you on here.
You did. Exclusive journalism here.
Screenshot of pulling the mask off you like in Scooby-Doo.
So should we move on to Team Fortress 2?
We probably should at
maybe.
some point, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
This has been a great discussion.
44 minutes in.
entirely up to you guys.
You're being way too nice because you're talking to at least two of the people on this show had like a 20-minute discussion about how you need a license to climb ladders in Australia. So,
Oh, very
Yeah.
nice. First of all, I want to get in on that discussion. Listen, I have henceforth for the past several years I have made a living off of gibbering. I'm incredibly verbose, and I'm getting really good at being incredibly pedantic. So I can just talk about anything for any amount of time.
that's,
to be fair,
that's a
in
dangerous
Australia, you need
proposition.
a license to do anything, like to breathe. Housekeeping.
In Australia?
Yeah, government.
I want to go to Australia. Have you guys ever been to Australia?
I
No, I
haven't.
want to go so
No,
bad.
so
I really
want to
do. But after talking with Elizabeth, it's like, wow.
Right?
But yeah, apparently you need if you use a ladder in a workplace, you need to go to a training course to get a license in ladder use.
That sounds perfectly reasonable.
And there are several different rungs of licenses. Like, for the...
I hope that's a pun. Please tell me that is a ladder pun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With him, it's
Pretty much
always a
everything
pun.
I say is a pun.
Excellent.
Well, thank you.
So we actually had such a great time with Jack on the show that we actually recorded just a ton of stuff. And this week we're just going to put it in 2 parts. So this was part 1 where we talked about not the topic that we had Jack on to talk about, which he was so incredibly game for. It was great. And part 2, we're going to have a lot of fun and actually talk about the topic that we intended to have him talk about. So hopefully part 1 was really fun. And hopefully you have even more fun with part 2. Enjoy.